Welcome to our webinar on Universal Pre-Kindergarten, or UPK, implementation, where we'll be focusing this afternoon on local Head Start partnership opportunities held by the Early Education Division today on June 8th, 2022. We are recording this webinar and we will be posting it to our website. We will post this on the elementary page near where our template is posted. We'll drop that link in the chat. We will use CDE Today to share out when the webinar recording is available. If you're not currently subscribed to the CDE Today, you can sign up by sending a blank email to this email address that Mai just put in the chat. You can find recent archived versions of CDE Today at the link in the chat as well. Next slide, please. I'd like to welcome all of you here today and introduce myself as well as our team. I'm Kerra Lancaster and I work in the PQI North office here at the Early Education Division, EED, in the California Department of Education. I'll be doing the welcome and introductions today. To help answer your questions and make this webinar run smoothly, we have a great team here with us today from CDE. From the Opportunities for All branch, or OFAB, we have Sarah Neville Morgan, our Deputy Superintendent, and Teresa Maldonado. From the Director's Office at the Early Education Division, we have Stephen Profiter, Brianne Rude, Angela Data, and Sarah Dawson. From the UPK Implementation and Support Office, we have Shanna Vasquez and Stacy Anagnostopoulos. Also from the Policy Office, Eddie Tanimoto, Jennifer Osalbo, Mai Tao, and Sasha Mowry. From the Program Quality Implementation, or PQI Office, we have Crystal Devlin and Cassandra Lewis. From Early Education System Improvement, we have Alana Pinsler and Olivia Damaris. And our two American Sign Language, or ASL, interpreters this afternoon are Carol Buck and Michelle Spence. I also want to warmly mention our Technology Services Division, who ensures that our Zoom link is live and working for our webinars. They help ensure that there's closed captioning available for you to utilize during the webinar. And to turn it on, you can click on the CC button on the bottom right of your screen. So our team is really committed to being as responsive as possible, and we won't be able to answer every question today. Just a reminder, our chat box is disabled. CDE will be able to share links with you there, but you're unable to chat with us. Please instead utilize the Q&A feature to ask us questions. Any questions that we aren't able to get to today will be used to inform future FAQs on our website. To ask a question during the webinar, you can use that Q&A feature on Zoom. And please do give us as much detail as possible before clicking that submit button. For example, which pre-kindergarten program you're asking about, what kind of LEA or community-based organization you represent, early learning and care contract type, age of students, etc. The more detail, the better. Also, we have noticed on some of our division's webinars that there are some questions submitted that are kind of incomplete. So please don't feel the need to rush to get a question into the queue. It's totally okay to take a moment to accurately type out your questions before you click submit. So now I'll pass it over to Sarah Neville Morgan, the Deputy Superintendent of the Opportunities for All branch at CDE.
Thank you so much, Kerra. As Kerra just mentioned, my name is Sarah Neville Morgan, and I'm a Deputy Superintendent with the California Department of Education. First and foremost, I would like to welcome everyone to our third Universal Pre-Kindergarten, or UPK, webinar. We are excited to engage with all of you today and answer some of your questions. Many of you have been coming to our pre-K through third grade, or P-3 alignment webinars over the past year, where we've been including discussions about UPK along with other historic investments, such as expanded learning opportunities program, dual immersion programs, and universal meals. We've heard from many of you from our last UPK webinars that you wanted to dive deeper into community engagement and partnerships around planning for UPK. To help you with that, we'll start with a quick review of UPK and the California State Preschool Program, which then can generate ideas around how to work together as a community to meet these goals. Next, our Head Start guest speakers will dive deeper into UPK implementation. We are going to focus on how Head Start can be leveraged to support UPK planning and implementation by providing direct services to children to support the full day of UPK and some models for layering programs to meet family needs. Throughout all of this, we still want to emphasize the opportunity to transform our educational system by integrating these historic investments so they truly weave together to create the optimal educational experience for California students, starting with our preschoolers. We also want to emphasize that these investments in quality pre-K need to be embedded within a P3 frame to capitalize on the learning and outcomes, and that doing all this well requires new partnerships between and among local education agencies, state preschool, expanded learning, Head Start, private preschool, and other early learning and care programs. That partnership is the focus of today's webinar. Before I turn it over to Steve, who will give another warm welcome to our attendees and guests, I do want to do a special thank you to Stephanie Myers for putting together the concept behind this and making sure we all move forward with it. And to echo some of the earlier thanks, just TSD, OFAB, and our early ed staff, thank you for all your support every single day to make sure that California is successful in UPK and in launching this webinar. All right, over to you, Steve.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So welcome and thank you for joining us for our third webinar on UPK implementation. We'll be focusing this afternoon on community engagement partnerships, and in a true fashion of partnership, we are partnering with our friends from County Offices of Education, Head Start, and the California Department of Social Services to bring you this webinar. So we know that to successfully implement UPK and create that preschool to third grade continuum, partnerships between LEAs, community-based early learning and care organizations, and other elements of California's early learning and care ecosystem will need to cultivate or strengthen relationships for collaboration. Today, we are focusing on collaboration and partnership at the local level. You'll get some great information on the importance of early education and creating partnerships, as well as goals and sample models within the California's mixed delivery system. We are thrilled to welcome our guest speakers on Head Start, many of whom are also local leaders of California state preschool programs and other facets of California's vast early education system. We hope that as participants, you come away with ideas around how Head Start fits into California's mixed delivery system and how Head Start can be a partner in local UPK planning and implementation. And now we'll go back to Kerra, who will introduce our wonderful speakers from Head Start.
Thank you, Steve. So presenting with us today are some valued guest speakers from other agencies. Stephanie Myers currently serves as the California Head Start State Collaboration Office Director at the Department of Social Services in the Child Development Division. Her role is to support and partner with state agencies on a multitude of state system work that focus on early care and education. Stephanie has worked for Tribal Head Start. She has been a national reviewer for the Office of Head Start, worked over a decade with West Ed, and has been with the state both in CDE and CDSS for a combined decade as well. She holds a master's degree in education and feels partnering and collaboration are the foundation for access to services and supports. From the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Cynthia Yao. She is the Regional Program Manager for the Region 9 Office of Head Start in the Administration for Children and Families. As Regional Program Manager for the Region 9 Office of Head Start, Cynthia oversees the administration, funding, oversight, and training and technical assistance, or TNTA, to Head Start grant recipients in Arizona, California, Hawaii, Nevada, and the Outer Pacific Islands. Prior to serving in this role, she was an OHS Supervisory Program Specialist, OHS Program Specialist, and Region 9 TNTA Content Expert for over 15 years. She also worked in a Bay Area Head Start program for 6 years. Her professional experience also includes working in a juvenile prevention program, foster family agency, and child protective services. And from Head Start California, Christopher Maricle, who has served as the Executive Director of Head Start California since summer 2016. Prior to that, he served in a variety of roles at the California School Boards Association and as Assistant Superintendent of Schools for the Catholic Schools of Stockton from 2001 to 2006, overseeing 2 high schools and 12 elementary schools in the areas of staff development, content standards, accreditation, and standardized testing. He has a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's degree in education leadership. Next slide, please. Additional guest speakers that we have are leaders of Head Start practitioners. Keesha Woods, Head Start and Early Learning Division Executive Director, has more than 20 years of management experience with LACOE, which I believe is the Los Angeles County Office of Education, serving in her position for the past 12 years. As Executive Director, Ms. Woods is responsible for LACOE's Early Learning Program that supports children, families, providers, and staff throughout LA County, including Head Start, Early Head Start, California State Preschool, General Child Care, Quality Rating and Improvement Systems, California Preschool Instructional Network, and most recently, Transitional Kindergarten. Tony Jordan has a successful work history with federal, state, and locally funded early education and family support programs spanning over 20 years. As an advocate for the importance of the first years of life and common sense approaches for programs and services, Tony currently serves children, families, and local communities by leading, as Executive Director, the award-winning Child and Family Services, or CFS, division of the Stanislaus County Office of Education, and the Central California Migrant Head Start Program Joint Power Authority. These organizations are known and recognized locally, regionally, throughout the state, and nationally for delivering high quality services that foster school readiness, family community engagement, and social competence. Aida Buelna has worked in education for 36 years. Currently, she is a consultant for the superintendent search firm and is now with the Sacramento City Unified School District in the Early Learning and Care Department. Her past experience includes being superintendent for the Esparto Unified School District, an administrator for child development with Sac City, a director over state and federal programs for Woodland Joint Unified School District. Other experience she has is working as a bilingual teacher, elementary principal, a vice principal of a junior high, and a visiting educator to CDE. Yolanda Perez is the Executive Director of All Kids Academy Head Start, Inc., a nonprofit agency providing child development and social services in East San Diego County to over 1,000 children and families. Yolanda is currently serving as chairperson of the San Diego Local Child Care Planning Council and has earned her master's degree in nonprofit leadership from the University of San Diego, with over 30 years of administrative experience working at large Head Start grantees in Sacramento and San Diego. Her experience in Head Start began as a parent receiving services, and she has passionately shared her experience and the value of Head Start and quality childcare at various venues, including the National Head Start Conference and the San Diego County Board of Supervisors. I see that my notes here have missed Dr. Julie Montali, who is at the Sacramento County Office of Education. And I apologize, I don't have her bio in front of me, but she is one of our valued guest speakers today. Now I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer Osalbo to conduct the poll. Next slide, please.
Thank you so much, Kerra. So good afternoon, everyone. Now that we've introduced ourselves, let's start with a poll to get to know who's in the room with us. Soon, some poll questions should be popping up in your Zoom with 2 questions. Number 1, what is your title and or role? And number 2, in what area of the state are you located? For question 2, you can consider the California County Superintendent's Educational Services Association, or CSESA regions. So Northern California is region 1 and 2 in orange. The greater Sacramento regions are areas 3 and 6 in blue. The Bay Area is regions 4 and 5 in purple. The Central Valley is region 7 in green. The Inland Empire is region 10 in yellow. And Southern California is regions 8, 9, and 11 in red. A link to the map of the red regions can be found on CSES's webpage, which is http://ccsesa.org/regions. If you're calling into this Zoom, I'm sorry you do not have access to the polls. We appreciate your presence, and you or anyone can send questions to our email address at can send questions to upk@cde.ca.gov. So it looks like about 69% of you have participated in the poll already. We've got a lot of different kinds of staff in right now, and only one person has chosen other so far for the demographics. We're at 74% participation already, so we can let the poll go for a few more seconds and we can share the results with everyone. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and Bree can end the poll for us, and you should be able to see the results on your screen. So it looks like we've got about 1/5 of you are from a county office of education. A lot of you are from early learning and care teacher and staff or school district office staff, and a lot of nonprofit organizations. Oh, and about 1/5 of you are also other. And then for regions, we've got 39% of people from Southern California, 16% from the Bay Area, 14% from Northern California. Thank you so much for participating in that poll. And now I'm going to pass it over to our administrator over our UPK office, Shanna, who's going to present the next few slides.
Hi, thank you, Jennifer. I believe that, Stephen, did you want to hop back on and introduce?
I did. Thank you. I did want to do an introduction for Dr. Julie Montali. So Dr. Julie Montali is the Executive Director of Early Learning for the Sacramento County Office of Education. She's managed large school district preschool elementary programs, served as the Director of New Teacher Support for K-12 and supported families and school sites as a psychologist for 25+ years. Julie has taught grads courses in early childhood, special education, and teacher residency programs at various universities in New York and California. She has trained and coached numerous administrators through her Principal Early Learning Academy. Julie is committed to leading the work for engaging, caring, and rich and early learning experiences for all children with an emphasis on language and social emotional development. Her current work involves collaborating with various districts, agencies, and early learning leaders statewide in the planning and implementation of universal pre-kindergarten. Thank you, Shanna.
Absolutely. Thank you, Stephen. Now we will transition into talking about the introduction of universal pre-kindergarten. Next slide, please. This slide should look familiar. We almost always have this slide in our presentations, and it's a great visual to help you to see what is UPK. Let's review really quickly. UPK stands for Universal Pre-Kindergarten. UPK will bring together programs across early learning and K-12. A lot of people think that Universal Transitional Kindergarten, or UTK, and UPK are the same thing. So we wanted to clarify for you all how we think about it at CDE. UTK is part of UPK, but it's not the only part. UPK is a mixed delivery system that also includes the California State Preschool Program, which the CDE operates, along with other pre-kindergarten programs serving 3- and 4-year-old children, including the Federal Head Start program, subsidized programs that operate a preschool learning experience and are operated by community-based organizations, including family childcare and private preschool. UPK ensures that every 4-year-old child, regardless of background, race, zip code, immigration status, or income level, has access to a quality learning experience before the year before kindergarten. This afternoon, we're going to focus on the Head Start portion of this graphic and talk about how Head Start can be leveraged in your community, in your low-income communities. But before we get there, I wanted to talk about age eligibility for these public programs. Next slide, please. To start, let's better define early admittance TK, or ETK for you. ETK includes children that LEAs can choose to include in their enrollment, but are not required to include. An ETK child turns 5 during the school year after the TK age eligibility cutoff. LEAs can choose to serve children in ETK if they wish from the beginning of the school year, but the child does not begin generating average daily attendance until their 5th birthday. This school year, so the 21-22 school year, eligibility for TK is students turning 5 years old between September 2nd and December 2nd. At district discretion, children turning 5 between December 3rd and the end of the school year can be included in ETK, though the district doesn't generate funding for those students until their 5th birthday. Children with birthdays between July 1st and September 1st can be served in another preschool program, for example, CSPP, Head Start, or a locally funded program. In 2022-23, TK students are eligible if they turn 5 years old between September 2nd and February 2nd. At district discretion, children turning 5 between February 3rd and the end of the school year can be included in ETK. Rules for children with birthdays between July 1st and September 1st remain the same. Also, this year, ratios are modified to a 1-to-12 adult-child ratio and a class size of 24. In 2023-24, TK students are eligible if they turn 5 between September 2nd and April 2nd. At district discretion, children turning 5 between April 3rd and the end of the school year can be included in ETK. Rules for children with birthdays between July 1st and September 1st remain the same. Also, this year, ratios are modified to a 1-to-10 ratio, subject to future legislative apportionment, and class size remains 24. In 2024-25, TK students are eligible if they turn 5 between September 2nd and June 2nd. At district discretion, children turning 5 between June 3rd and the end of the school year can be included in ETK. Rules for children with birthdays between July 1st and September 1st remain the same. In 2025-26, all children are eligible if they turn 4 by September 1st. Because TK is fully implemented, ETK will not exist at this point. Ratios are 1-to-10, subject to future legislative appropriation, with a class size of 24. For the first time, children with birthdays between July 1st and September 1st can be served in TK. Next slide, please. Before we get into Head Start, we wanted to provide a brief overview of CSPP, which is the California State Preschool Program. Next slide, please. CSPP programs can be either part day, part year, or full day, full year. A part day CSPP program shall operate for a minimum of 3 hours per day, excluding time for home to school transportation, and a minimum of 175 days per year. A full day CSPP program shall operate for a minimum of 246 days per year. To qualify for CSPP, generally families need to be income eligible, making less than 85% of the state median income, adjusted for family size, and for full day programs, families must have a need. We will discuss this more on the next slide. Although CSPP programs need to be licensed if a local educational agency, LEA, is serving only 4-year-old children, they can apply for a license waiver through their regional consultant. And finally, CSPP has several program requirements such as staffing and ratio, the use of early childhood environmental rating scale, and the desired results developmental profile assessment, parent surveys, and curriculum aligned to preschool learning foundations. Next slide, please. We wanted to go a little deeper with you today on CSPP eligibility criteria based on current law to help you best think through how to leverage CSPP to support your UPK efforts. One thing we want to flag before we go too deep here is that this is current law, and the governor's budget proposes to modify these eligibility criteria and the priorities for enrollment. This can be seen as a short list of basic eligibility, and agencies can reach out to their consultants for more detailed questions regarding eligibility criteria, or you can view the complete list in Ed Code 8208. Or the CDE program requirements for CSPP handbook, which we'll put the link in the chat. Ed Code 8208 states that 3- and 4-year-old children, as well as TK and kindergarten age children, are eligible for part and full day CSPP if the child's family is 1, a current aid recipient, 2, income eligible with an income below 85% of state median income, or $78,135 for a family of 3 this fiscal year, 3, homeless, 4, one whose children receive child protective services or identified as being abused, neglected, or exploited, or at risk of being abused, neglected, or exploited, 5, lives within and attends a CSPP program within the attendance boundaries of a school where 80% or more of pupils are eligible for free or reduced price meals. For part day CSPP only, children from families with income slightly above the income threshold, and children from exceptional needs with income above eligibility threshold. Next slide, please. To help you better understand CSPP, we want to provide you with some detailed information about CSPP programmatic standards. First, the environmental rating scales. Each year, as part of the self-evaluation process, each classroom needs an ECHRS or early childhood environment rating scale with a minimum average score of good. Please note that the version of the ECHRS is from 1998 with the substantial portion of the day. For staffing, the ratios are 1 teacher to 24 students and 1 adult to every 8 children. The teacher's minimum requirements are a child development associate teacher permit. A child development associate teacher permit authorizes the holder to provide service in the care, development, and instruction of children in a child care and development program and supervise a CDP assistant and an aide. The other 2 adults need to be at least 18 years old. For assessing the children, CSPP requires the use of the desired results developmental profile, or the DRDP. For CSPP and TK, the DRDP preschool is the version to use since it's age appropriate. The different views include different measures: the comprehensive view, essential view, or the fundamental view. For fiscal year 2021-22, CSPP contractors may use the modified essential view of the DRDP, and the initial DRDP should be completed between 60 and 90 calendar days from the date of the child's enrollment. A second rating period must occur 6 months following the initial rating. Please feel free to look at the Management Bulletin 2113. We'll put the link in the chat. Now, over to Jennifer, who will moderate the remainder of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Shanna, for that introduction on UPK and CSPP. So now we're going to turn it over to our Head Start partners. So first is Stephanie Myers.
Hi, thank you so much for having Head Start as part of the CDE UPK webinar series. As introduced, I'm Stephanie Myers, the Director for the California Head Start State Collaboration Office. We have a very informative and educational presentation for you today with leaders in the early learning and care field who have experience with both Head Start and state-funded programs. So to kick off our presentation, I will first hand it over to Cynthia Yao, Program Manager for Region 9, Office of Head Start. Cynthia?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. We really appreciate all of you joining today to learn more about the opportunities for partnering with Head Start. If we can go to the next slide, please. So first, before we begin sharing out from our programs here in California about some of these wonderful opportunities ahead of us, we would like to share with you an overview about what is Head Start or the purpose of Head Start. So the purpose of Head Start is to promote the school readiness of low-income children by enhancing their cognitive, social, and emotional development in a learning environment that supports their growth comprehensively through the provision to children and their families of health, educational, nutritional, social, and other services that are determined based on family needs assessments to be necessary. So one of the things we would like to share with all of you is there are many opportunities in all of our Head Start programs across California to partner with UPK, TK programs, especially with services to children and families who meet our eligibility criteria. You will see that there are many opportunities where these sections intersect with state preschool and TK. Next slide, please. So we wanted to start with the breadth of work that is done in Head Start also includes services to early Head Start. And our early Head Start eligibility and population include serving pregnant women and children ages birth to age 3. A little bit more about our early Head Start eligibility has to do with looking at income. So you'll see here on this slide a summary of our eligibility criteria, which includes serving families that are within and below the federal income guidelines. There's an asterisk next to the guidelines. If you look to the right of the slide, we would like to share that up to 10% of families can be served that are over income. And we also, Head Start programs can serve up to 35% of families who are between 100 to 130%, which is below 130% of poverty. Other eligibility requirements for Head Start programs include families that are eligible for public assistance, which includes TANF, SSI, and SNAP. We also served a child that is homeless or a child that is in foster care. We also have an eligibility requirement for programs to serve a minimum of 10% of enrolled children must have a diagnosed special need. Next slide. So for Head Start, our Head Start eligibility includes ages of children between the ages of 3 to 5. And you'll see this asterisk here to the right, at least 3 years old or turns 3 years old by the date used to determine eligibility for public school in the community in which the Head Start program is located, and to be no older than the age required to attend school, which in this case would be kindergarten in California. We also look at Head Start eligibility income, which again is also below the federal income guidelines. Similarly to early Head Start, it includes serving families up to 10% over income and up to 35% of income that also falls below 130% of poverty. Similar as well in Head Start, we have other eligibility requirements, which is serving a family that is eligible for public assistance, TANF, SSI, SNAP, and a child that is homeless or in foster care. as well as the minimum of 10% of enrolled children must have a diagnosed special need. The purpose really of Head Start is to try in every community to reach the most neediest families. And again, within programs, they also have other opportunities to develop what we call a selection criteria, which affords looking at the community assessment and building in additional eligibility criteria or requirements that best meet that community need, which could include serving children in protective services or at risk, etc. So again, I think benefit to Head Start is that we really look at every community to assess the additional community needs and how we can best serve all of the families and children in those areas. Next slide. Lastly, what I wanted to share with you today was some statistics specifically around California and what we are doing in California with Head Start services. Overall, you'll see on this chart on the left side, we have served this year Head Start 50,011 children. In early Head Start, 27,408. And within that number, infants and toddlers, early Head Start, which is EHS, 26,271. And in early Head Start, EHS, pregnant women, 1,137. This is based on our program information report statistics from 2021. Our total funded enrollment for the state of California is 88,184, of which we were able to serve this past year 77,419. I also thought it would be nice to share with all of you that approximately 24% of our operating Head Start programs operate what we call part-day center-based services. This affords additional opportunities for these recipients in California to partner or combine and layer our federal funding with state funding opportunities to provide working families with full day, full year services. So there's a lot of room here for continued partnership and exploration with all of you around how Head Start can work together with other entities in meeting the needs of that we know in California are vastly needed for full day, full year services for children in both infant, toddler, as well as preschool aged eligibility. And now I think I'm going to turn it back over to Stephanie, and then we'll be able to hear from some of our wonderful programs here in California about some of the ideas they have of partnering with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy, so much. On the next slide. So I'm going to dive a little bit into what Cynthia talked about. So California's mixed delivery system. When we think about that, we think about Head Start and California State Preschool, CSPP, Early Head Start and CCTR, General Child Care, Early Head Start and Child Care Partnerships. So partnering and working together on behalf of children and families is not only important, but it's essential. Parent choice should be front and center and the shared goal and plan. California's mixed delivery system includes state-funded childcare, family childcare, private childcare, and federal to local Head Start programs, as you heard earlier in this presentation. Over the years, Head Start has worked in collaboration with many other funding streams to support strong full-day, full-year accessible programs. So for over 60 years, Head Start has provided support services. Head Start provides our most at-risk children with a range of services that are essential to their growth and development. And Head Start programs are poised to plan collaboratively to provide more children access to those services. And data, Head Start, it's a requirement for Head Start. Head Start programs conduct a community needs assessment regularly and can support local efforts in determining the scope of early childcare needs for their community. Engagement. Head Start enjoys extensive parent engagement and can help facilitate local planning that is inclusive of parents of young children to make sure parents are informed and their needs are considered. And as you know, parent choice is a key principle of the master plan for early learning and care. And expertise. Head Start has early childhood professionals and training and experience serving children aged 48 to 60 months and can partner to provide training and coaching. Head Start and State Preschool have been collaborating for decades, resulting in enhanced services for children, families, and staff, and shared financial resources. Looking ahead at continued collaborative models, this may include TK and Head Start, as they are well suited to do much of the same. Thinking about the benefits that Head Start brings, much of what Cynthia had already discussed, and diving a little bit more deeply into that, for enrolled children, it's an age-appropriate early intervention and health screenings such as vision, hearing, blood pressure, height, weight assessments, tuberculosis and lead screens. And of course, there's follow-up treatment and referrals as needed. Dental screenings and examinations, in-class mental health support services, and individualized intervention plans. There are meals, including breakfast, lunch, and snack with accommodations for special diets and cultural preferences, child assessments, 2 home visits and parent-teacher conferences per program year, and special education screenings, assessment, and individualized planning. For families, which is the center of our Head Start heart, financial support for educational goals, including degrees, certifications, job trainings, and ESL classes, career development and job seeking support, individualized plans for family needs and child development, parent engaged policy committees for shared decision making, and parent education classes and support services. And for staff, low teacher-child ratios, higher education levels for co-teachers, financial support for educational goals, support services in the classroom for children with challenging behaviors, support services for children with disabilities and special needs, and professional development, staff training, and personalized coaching. And there are countless opportunities that Head Start provides as a partner, with ongoing monitoring, licensing efforts to ensure safe and healthy centers, and national experts from the Office of Head Start to lead and provide training and technical assistance. Head Start has always been and will continue to be a leader and collaborative partner to best serve our most vulnerable children and families. And with that, I just wanted to hand it over to Christopher Maricle from Head Start California to dive a little bit more into our mixed delivery system for Head Start. Christopher?
Thank you, Stephanie, and good afternoon to all of you. It is a pleasure to be with you today. As Stephanie said, I'm Christopher, the Executive Director at Head Start California. Cynthia and Stephanie have given you really a very great broad overview of Head Start, and I just want to add a little bit of detail to the Head Start network. So what you see here and on the following slide is some data from the Program Information Report released by the Office of Head Start. That report summarizes over 600 data points that programs collect and submit annually. This data released in October of 2019 in the before time, pre-pandemic, and I think might fairly represent the number of children that Head Start has traditionally served over the last half decade. So the first number, the 122,704, slightly differs from the data that you saw earlier, but I think what has been relatively constant is the market share. So Head Start constitutes about 20% of all children in subsidized care in California. The next number on the screen that you see there, the 1,700 sites around the state of California, the centers that are operated by 147 grantees, the agencies that receive Head Start funding to run those programs. And the last number on the slide is important to highlight. And I think there's been an allusion to this, but this 70% of agencies that have Head Start programs already have at least one contract with the state, either for general child care or for state preschool. So what that means is that we already have this very high degree of collaboration between Head Start and other parts of the early childhood mixed delivery system. As we move to the next slide, I want to drill down just a little bit on those 147 agencies. So as you can see here, Head Start agencies represent many different kinds of entities. 59 private nonprofit organizations provide Head Start services, and they collectively are serving almost a third of all Head Start children. We have 56 local educational agencies, and that includes nearly 40 school districts and over a dozen county offices of education, collectively serving over 25,000 kids in Head Start. In addition, you have 12 community action agencies, 13 tribal nations, and 6 other government agencies, including 2 cities, 2 county boards of supervisors, 1 joint powers agency, and of course, the California Department of Education's Early Head Start Child Care Partnership Program. So I think the big takeaway for all of this, I want to reiterate what Stephanie said just a moment ago, and that is that there are countless opportunities that Head Start provides as a partner. With 147 agencies and 1,700 sites, with nearly 70% already collaborating with state programs to provide families the services they need. Head Start is just a ready-made partner for locally designed collaboration as California moves towards this new vision of UPK. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Julie.
Thank you, Christopher, for taking us a little bit into that data, painting a picture for us. And now we're going to sort of go a little bit more into that, up into that 10,000-foot view again. So I'm Julie, I'm from Sacramento, and so happy to be here. Here in the capital city, and this is true for many of you, we're really working toward a cohesive early learning and care system. So we have many, many folks who play a really important role. No one agency or organization can really shoulder this great responsibility alone. So what I want to do is discuss county outreach for a few minutes with you. Next slide, please. So this slide reminds us of a wonderful launch pad for this work, and Stephanie mentioned it a little bit earlier, the Master Plan for Early Learning and Care, Making California for All Kids. All kids. That's a really important part. A consolidated, coherent system will bring children and their early learning and care professionals the support they need to thrive. So our children, our youngest learners, are at the center of all we do, but let's consider all the adults that are charged with such critically important work as they do in the care and education of these kiddos. So when we think of that consolidated system, we think about what the master plan reminds us of, bringing together a rich array of the workforce. That includes family, friend, and neighbor. That includes family child care providers. It's talking about those of us who are working in centers into one coherent system. The only way that we can do this and really thrive is to bring all these folks together. And Head Start has been just an integral part of that in Sacramento. Let's go to the next slide, please. So Universal Pre-Kindergarten, or UPK, really gives us this incredible opportunity where collaboration really is key. So in Sacramento, a big message for us has been this idea of sharing responsibility. The County Office of Education, LEAs, our school districts and charters, and our early learning partners. And I will tell you that Head Start has been just phenomenal in terms of a partner for us. When we talk about convening collaborative planning meetings. So bringing early learning partners together, such as Head Start, and we're cultivating relationships. One of the ways that we were able to do that here in Sacramento was to convene a monthly UPK collaborative. And that was really bringing people together for information sharing, to bring connection to the work, have questions and answers, and to really maximize the potential of the group. Having different leaders with different areas of expertise was really key. And a big shout out goes out to Denise Lee, my friend and colleague, who is the executive director for Head Start, and just her willingness to provide leadership and also vulnerability, putting herself and all our Head Start partners just into a space that allowed people to want to reach out and want to partner with them. Part of that is facilitating one-on-ones and small group communication between our school districts and our Head Start partners. We were able to do that through a weekly set of office hours that were drop-in, and other times where we just met with small groups and connected even by an e-introduction using email. And then finally, we have utilizing existing structures. So local planning council, many of you have also used that as a way to really work together. This for us was an important place where we brought Head Start leaders together and really to reach out and build trust among another group of early care providers. So we were very fortunate to be able to do that. Next slide, please. One of the things that I'd like to also leave you with, especially if you're with a school district, is the benefits for LEAs. So here are just a few of the things that you can think about. When you partner with people like Head Start, you're talking about ways to share costs, ways that you can get additional funding for administrative costs. Earnings are based on enrollment, not attendance. You're maximizing facility spaces. There's financial support for facilities and outdoor enhancements. And certainly one of the biggies is expanded hours at no additional cost to the district. One of the things that we found really beneficial has been the ability to bring on support staff, and that could be registered nurses, it could be social workers, psychologists like myself, registered dietitians, community liaisons, bilingual aides, substitutes, and the list goes on. So just to leave you with this, working together is absolutely key. And there can be major alignment and administrative efficiencies. And so I hope you will try out a few of these, and you'll find that not only is it beneficial to our North Star, our little ones, but the folks that work each and every day to make a quality early learning experience for our little ones. So now we're going to hand it over to Tony.
Julie, thank you so much. And I think a really solid foundation has been set from where I'm going to take you. And I'm going to dive a little deeper on what some of the existing collaboration models are. Again, Head Start is no stranger to collaborating federal and state funding and even local funding to create programs and services that best meet local families' needs. And we can work across different types of agencies and organizations. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the most common collaboration models and then move into the one that we find here locally really gives us the most flexibility and the best way for us to approach how we can collaborate as UPK and UTK specifically unfolds. But keep in mind that any one of these models that I'm going to share with you and let you know how we define and operate those here locally, certainly based on approval from our funding sources, both CDE, CDSS, and the Federal Office of Head Start. But these are the models that we've used and implemented over the years. and they can certainly be applied to and adapted for collaboration with UTK as you move forward. So starting on the left side, some of the most common collaboration models you'll hear many times folks refer to as layered. And so when we speak about layered programs here locally, we have differentiated that between what we call a wrapped program or an enhanced program. When we talk about a wrapped program, what we are talking about locally is that each child that's in a particular classroom is funded by more than one funding source, but their funding is very specific to time periods of the day that each of those funding sources are used to create that learning environment and experience for that child. But when we talk about an enhanced model, what we're really talking about is a foundational program with then Head Start coming on top of that foundational program and providing all the comprehensive, holistic, and supplemental or ancillary services that Head Start is so well known for. So wrapped and enhanced are how we've differentiated the different types of layered programs that can exist in a collaboration model. Moving on to commingled. When we say commingled, what we are talking about is that in a specific classroom, each child has one funding source, but that there may be more than one funding source in that specific classroom. So you may have, for example, a Head Start funded child, a state preschool funded child, a TK funded child, but they all have separate funding sources. Each child has separate funding sources, but they are all commingled, as it were, in that classroom. The last one I want to unpack a little bit for you is co-located, and we differentiate that from commingled because as we've implemented collaboration models over the years, there has been a very specific nuance to co-located collaboration model. And when we talk about co-located, imagine, if you will, a early education center with multiple classrooms where each classroom has a different funding source that is being implemented to provide the educational experience for the children in each classroom. So you might have one classroom of Head Start, one classroom of state preschool, one classroom of TK. So there's a differentiation, and certainly all the budgeting that goes behind these collaboration models is a little bit different, but those are some of the models that we've used in the past here locally. Moving over to the blended model, which is the model that we are most using now locally here in Stanislaus County. It takes some elements of what the other collaboration models has, but what it really does is create, as it were, a new program that could not exist through the collaboration models previously described. Here locally, the most common blended models that we use are Head Start and State Preschool, which is HS and CSPP. We also use Early Head Start and General Childcare, or EHS and CCTR. And we also use a blended model with Migrant Seasonal Head Start and the California State-Based Migrant Program, or MSHS and CMIG. So some key distinctions from the other collaboration models I've described. There are no set times of the day where each funding source is being used on a specific child. All regulations are concurrently met, with the most stringent being met at all points in time during the day. And again, this creates a new program, as it were, by bringing all resources together for the entire portion of the day. What we have done most recently here in Stanislaus County is use this blended model to really figure out how to best implement and meet what is called duration of service in Head Start programs. A few years ago, the Office of Head Start put into place a progressive way for us to increase the number of hours that a child receives services for in a given school year. And so this blended model has really helped us to be able to do that. Specifically, if you look in the Head Start program performance standards under 1302.20, the blended model really meets the elements of a full day program, whether that's defined as a full school day or a full working day. And there are differences in those within the performance standards. It brings in alternate funding sources, which is a requirement under that performance standard. And it also continues to meet Head Start as a federal funding source, being the payer of last resort. So by using a blended model, we've been able to meet the 1,380 hours of service or the 1,020 hours of service that's required by Head Start program performance standards. And we've been able to also exceed that in our full working day program by being able to have the funding needed and necessary to provide a 10-hour minimum day of service, which is what the full working day is defined as. So again, the blended model is what we've been utilizing here locally, but I hope within each one of these models that I've previewed for you, you could see how Head Start and UTK could very well come together in any one of these models that I've described to create a full breadth of service for young children in your local programs. Now I'm going to hand the presentation over to Yolanda, and thank you for your time and engagement.
Thank you, Tony. My name is Yolanda Perez, and during my introduction, I am the Executive Director of All Kids Academy Head Start, aka Head Start, and I'm here to talk about Head Start working with districts as a private, nonprofit, co-located program. I've worked at the grantee and delegate Head Start programs in Sacramento and San Diego for over 30 years, specifically really focusing in on overseeing delegate and partnerships, grants, contracts, and ongoing monitoring. So the agency that I currently work at, aka Head Start, is a delegate agency with both state and Head Start funding, and we serve over 1,000 children in center-based, locally designed options with school districts. We have almost 100 slots in those school district partnerships. An option with school districts that I'm most familiar with is a locally designed option, which means that programs will need to seek approval from the Regional Office of Head Start and the state before implementing. However, as you can see from the first bullet, wrapped with Part Day CSPP funding and Part Day Head Start funding provides full services, which is called wrap services, as Tony talked about, and provides full day of care. And that's a service much needed by our parents. For school districts that are already providing a full day CSPP program, partnering with the Head Start program can provide enhancement, which is another option that Tony covered, which provides enhancement dollars to increase the quality in classrooms with additional items such as supplies and supports in order to meet the environmental rating, or ECRs. The administrative benefits of this model include clean, clear budget management as a set of reimbursement rates per child or slot, and the days of operation are negotiated upon when developing the MOU or contract. Contracts are set up with the school district to submit monthly or quarterly invoices for reimbursable expenditures, including school district teacher salaries to extend the day, supplies such as cots and bedding for napping, and afternoon snacks. In both scenarios, whether wrapping with a part day or a full day CSPP option, teachers are from the school district. They provide kindergarten, school readiness, classroom instruction. A paid family service worker, employee from the Head Start agency, is assigned to the classroom to provide the family social services, which could include health, nutrition, mental health, disabilities, parent involvement, including family goal setting. Both parties, the school district and Head Start, are heavily regulated monitored, and require reporting. Thus, the key in my experience of relationship building when it comes to solid relationships and partnerships is developing a very transparent MOU and contract at the very beginning. The development of developing a clear expectations from both parties makes for good partnerships that end up being long and very beneficial, of course, to our passionate parents and our communities. MOUs can be tailored to meet specific district needs. For example, my family service workers assigned to the school district classrooms have teacher permits. And so as part of our MOU, we included that they cover the school district's teachers' morning and afternoon breaks to ensure that student-teacher ratios and classroom safety are upheld at all times. Classrooms contracts include additional statements such as additional Head Start and state requirements such as the third DRDP, snacks for the afternoon, and nap times. I've been witness over the 30 years to quality long-term relationships built on the premise that all children and families deserve quality care. These models allow Head Start to work in partnership with school districts to provide children and families truly a head start as they will eventually be entering the public school district system. I ask that you please consider providing a holistic approach of the full family of support services as these families are really most in need. And the way that families feel individually supported, and this way children are ready to succeed in school. Thank you very much. I pass the floor to our next speaker, Aida.
I want to welcome everyone today. As a LEA or in the district office, I will be sharing with you the idea that we took from the collaboration that we have with state preschool and Head Start and moved it on and moved it forward with Head Start and TK. So if I can see the next slide. Okay. One of the things that we really wanted to do was ensure that we had our transitional kindergarten students given the opportunity to receive comprehensive services. So we braided our Head Start with TK to provide comprehensive services to our TK students beginning in the 22-23 school year. We have a pilot program with cooperation from Head Start, which Denise Lee is the head of, is our grantee, and we are one of the delegates. This was to assist us also in addressing the under-enrollment for preschool, because now we'll be able to share with families that they can start in preschool, move on to TK, and then go on into kindergarten at the school site where they're receiving services. We adapted the universal transitional kindergarten so that we can move forward in all schools in the district. We wanted to look at a balanced budget, fiscal solvency by braiding funding with the California Preschool Program, Head Start, and transitional kindergarten. We want to meet 100% of the Head Start Performance Standard 1302.21C2-3 program duration extended day services. We provide an extended day opportunity for our preschool students and for our TK students. They will have an opportunity to begin the day in a transitional kindergarten environment, move into the Head Start portion of the day, and then continue with extended day. So we will be providing over 9 hours of a program for our parents and students. In collaborating with the extended day, our Sacramento Youth Development is going to be providing the extended educational program for after school, and they will be providing it in the classrooms that the students are more familiar with. Next slide. We are also collaborating with special education to meet the needs of all preschool students including our universal transitional kindergarten, where enrolled families will receive comprehensive health, wellness, and educational service in alignment with the Head Start and California State preschool program requirements. We bring equity to the preschool community by a full day opportunity for all. We are going to be providing equity and working conditions for all preschool classroom staff. We're going to reinstate additional support staff, and we're going to implement the pilot of 2 universal TK Head Start collaborative partners pilots to ensure that our community and our students will be receiving these comprehensive services. And it's a model that we're looking forward to. We know that we have had success with, as we've heard already in prior individuals, that RAP programs do work. And I can attest to that. Yolanda, I remember when I was back here 18 years ago, and we did have a very successful program that mirrors state preschool, Head Start, and now we're going into TK. Now I'd like to hand over the presentation to Keesha.
Good afternoon, and thank you for allowing me to be here to talk with you today. Do you hear me okay? Just want to double check. Perfect. And we've heard a lot of good information, and I'm very, very pleased to hear about the way that we are talking about partnering. A couple of things that came to mind as we have gone over this. One is we've been working with CDE for so very long to blend and learn how to partner in terms of OHS and CDE. And so I'm glad that we are continuing that focus. The other part that came to mind is that old saying that it takes a village. It takes a village to make sure that we're supporting every 4-year-old, every 3-year-old in the work that we do. And we're supporting that according to parent choice. So thank you, team, for all that you've already shared. I think we have a really good foundation, and we want to conclude one more part to that foundation, and that is around transition. Transition for our children is not just about activity. It's not just about giving a parent a piece of paper and saying, we are now moving your kid over to another group. Transition is about looking at the whole child and the family on a continuum of support, or from a systemic perspective. For the last several years, I want to say since 2018 or so, Head Start and California Department of Education and the Head Start Collaboration Office, along with some other major players such as First 5 Los Angeles, have worked together to really talk about transition and how transition has to happen from the time the child enters your program to the time that they actually move into kindergarten. And now we are even talking about moving into 1st grade, 2nd grade, and 3rd grade. This P3 alignment, this P3 continuum of supports. Why do we need transition and a framework or a way to do transition? One, because we know that successful transitions require many different parts to work together to create a solid system. We also know that children benefit from high quality early learning experiences, and we don't want there to be a gap from one experience to another. We want to continue to build on those experiences. We also know that our children need a sturdy bridge into kindergarten to set them on the right path as they continue to thrive. So it goes back to that learning loss. We don't want our children to lose all of the gains as they become integrated into their academic foundation. And in California as large, we have many, many different pre-K funding sources, as the speakers have talked to you about today. We have elementary, we have private providers, we have Head Start. We want to make sure that we're all in this community serving this village together. More and more we know that one funding stream is not going to take care of all of our needs, particularly those needs that we address through our master plan. It's going to take all of us working together. And then in another part of that transition, why do we need a framework? Because many times, well, first off, any system in an organization starts with the leader. If you don't have the leader on board with the system, if you don't have that backing to say, this is how we're going to do business, it won't happen. And the leaders are your superintendents, it's your principals, it's your site supervisors. For us, it's our superintendent. For a nonprofit, it may be their CEO. It may be the board of directors. All of those leaders need to be on board in terms of how you're going to approach transition and how you're going to look at transition as a system approach to working with families versus activities, one time touching with a family and then moving them along to the next group. And then the next part is, why do we need a framework? It's because a framework gives you tools and resources, things at your fingertips that you can share with the greater group to bring about consistency and continuity, and definitely, I would say, quality as you work with the kids and the families. So the Birth to 5 transition system alignment framework that we have been collaborating with, again, with CDE, the Head Start Collaboration Office, the Office of Head Start, both regionally and nationally. First 5 Los Angeles, we even had third grading reading level that was a part of this. Many parents, many other organizations and actual practitioners provided input to this 3 C's framework that I'm going to talk to you a little bit about. Next slide, please. So this particular framework has kind of evolved. We started first off in our initial take on this, our initial version of this was only focusing on pre-K to kindergarten, but we've now included, we now have a framework that is a continuum of supports from children from birth all the way through kindergarten, and that includes TK. The good part about this transitional system that we have implemented, the 3 C's framework, is supported with 4 subsystems that you will see depicted in the graphic to your left of this screen. And that 4 subsystems identify the key leadership, the family, the community, and the school as essential to creating a solid system of transition moving through your age groups. The framework also has 3 key elements that should be included in any framework that helps to guide the players as a part of your system. And that is coordination. So it would be coordination amongst leaders, coordination amongst families, coordination amongst schools. And it's not just your school, but it's also those schools in your general area. As we talk about collaborating, as we talk about blending sources, you may have a Head Start program in your community where the children go for one portion of the day. Another portion of the day, they may come into your TK classroom. There needs to be collaboration and coordination with you, with those programs in your community, along with your district locations. And then other community aspects, the libraries, where do kids, where might children go after school? What other parties may be involved? It may be the PTA. So it's other community entities that should be a part of your overall vision of a transition system. Cooperating. Everyone needs to be on the same page. It really needs to be set, a foundation set by your leaders, your governing bodies, by your principals, by your superintendent, by your board of directors, by your CFOs in terms, not CFOs, CEOs, in terms of what direction you're going with and what you expect from a solid transition system. And then, of course, the last part of that 3 C's is collaboration, collaboration, collaboration. What do we mean by collaboration? It means supporting a mutual relationship between the subsystems, leaders, families, school, community, which result in a collective and shared purpose. This is not about us as leaders or practitioners. This is about our children and families. We want to make sure that all of the work that we do, we can see the long-lasting benefits as our children transition out of high school and even decide what their further development is going to be, whether that's education or college, or whether that is going to be technical, whatever it is. We want to give our children a foundation working together so that we make sure that they are moving on and our families are their first teachers. And then the last thing I want to say about this framework, not the last thing, in your chat, I provided you the federal and the state law that supports this. So when we brought this together to talk about transition as a system, it was not just something that we thought about was a good idea. What we thought about was the law requires us to do this. How can we come together and do it collectively? And how can we work with the practitioners in the field so that they have a framework or a guide to help them do this easier, and they don't have to try to go and figure it out. Our framework and our toolkit is all inclusive. And then in the next slide, you would see that we do have a link to the information that our programs can go to. The link that they should go is tinyurl.com/2B as in boy, 3, 2, P as in Paul, A, E, and M. That is the URL that you can go to, and we also put it in the chat. And then the last thing that I would say about this framework that I encourage you to go visit. We started working on this transition framework before P3 alignment was introduced across the state. It's not something else. And it's not different. It is in alignment with our focus on P3 alignment. It provides within that document, it identifies and it describes commonalities between age groups. For example, what you can look like, what it looks like in PK, what it looks like in TK, what it may look like in kindergarten. It really does provide some concrete examples for your teams to use to help them continue to focus on P3 alignment, but also to actually create your own plan and to implement your plan around P3 alignment. So with that, I say thank you, and I look forward to sharing more information about the transition framework developed across the state. I'll turn it back over to our facilitator.
Keesha, thank you so very much. Your leadership in the field and your leadership to me is remarkable. And Keesha is retiring, so I wanted to just say that, and a huge congratulations to her and everything she has done in her leadership role as a colleague and a friend, and for our state as a whole. So we are running short on time, which means we probably need more time with everybody at some point. So maybe we can plan that. But real quickly, with the Collaboration Office work group, we have been working on a toolkit for Head Start partnerships. And that link is going to be put into the chat for all of you. And one thing I wanted to leave you with is that the most important thing I think you've heard today is that Head Start is important to our mixed delivery system. We are a partner. We want to talk and coordinate and provide services to our most vulnerable children and families. And coordinate, collaborate, talk, make it happen for children and families, and make sure that the one most important, very important thing is that parents are at the center of all decisions. And so with that, we just want to leave you with a little video that we created, grassroots effort. There are too many people to thank for this video. They are listed in the Toolkit website. So let's just, without further ado, let's watch a little video, and thank you all for joining today. And although there isn't a live Q&A, Cynthia Yao and my emails are going to be shared, and please reach out to us with any further questions, and we will be following up on the Q&A once we receive the final report. So here's a little video that you can share and enjoy. Thanks again.
Partnering with Head Start. For many families, Head Start is the best start. Tabitha Thompson of Elk Grove Unified School District.
Head Start is a federal to local program that is funded by the Office of Head Start and locally administered.
Head Start provides early education, dental, hearing and vision screenings, mental health support, services for the entire family, and so much more. How Head Start partners with local school districts and the community at large.
Head Start works collaboratively to engage both parents, community members, health clinics, local health practitioners, and Head Start is extremely invested in the work of the local school for transitional kindergarten and kindergarten. And finally, Head Start staff want children and families to be successful in their new school setting and to reach their goals of school readiness and being socially prepared for kindergarten and beyond. Head Start programs are uniquely skilled in providing preschool assessments, operations, parent engagement, and so much more.
Head Start has over 60 years of experience providing whole child, whole family services through family engagement.
Head Start wants to share the success with local schools to bridge the awareness and to provide supports to maximize the successful transition and to ultimately make sure that every child and family reaches their goal.
Head Start wants to partner with you. Head Start alumni are all around us in our workplaces and communities.
I'm Rachel McKinney, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer at Sutter Medical Center in Sacramento, and I am Head Start.
My name is Adam Lara. I work with the Department of Social Services. I am a Staff Services Manager, and I am Head Start.
Buen día, mi nombre es Sandra González Pavón. Soy coordinadora de entrenadores instruccionales en educación temprana del Condado de Educación de Napa y soy Head Start.
Hi, my name is Malia. I'm 5 years old. I'm Head Start. Is that good?
Perfect.
Okay.
How Kids Start makes a difference. Brought to you by CDSS California Head Start State Collaboration Office, Head Start California.
That was a great video. Thank you so much. And I am going to turn it over to Steve to close us out.
Oh, thank you so much. That was a beautiful way of closing us out. I'd like to thank all of our Head Start presenters today and for the wonderful support, content, all of your hard work, and just, what a wonderful way to end with that video. We heard some wonderful options and considerations for partnerships and blending or braiding funding. We know that it will take all of us to wrap our arms around children and families to truly offer UPK that meets the needs of children and families. We appreciate being joined by our Head Start leaders to showcase some of the wonderful work they are doing in partnerships within UPK. As Stephanie mentioned, we'll be getting some of the FAQs back and answering a number of those that were answered, and I want to appreciate everyone who went into answered questions today. So thank you again for joining us for webinar number 3. Have a wonderful afternoon and rest of your week. Stay cool.
For questions and comments, send an email to upk@cde.ca.gov. This webinar recording will be available at www.cde.ca.gov/ci/gs/em.